Many years ago, when I first began this work with Paul, I said to you that we were very near a time on earth of the division of the old and the new, of the beginning of a new age, a new special kind of consciousness. I said that as the time of the changeover grew closer, events, both prophetic and unpredictable, would be occurring on earth. It is time now to address those events. I said then that in the process of the transformation of earth and humanity, that a time would come when the pressures of the shifting changes, the pressures of new energies replacing old, the pressure of a reality being squeezed into oblivion as a new one was born, would cause a kind of cracking, a kind of collapsing in upon itself of the old reality, as though the energy had been removed from it, as though it were a giant balloon from which the air was slowly and then more rapidly escaping. That there would be an ending so full of contradictions, so full of irrationalities, so full of inexplicable events, all within a framework of prophetic events, that those who were being born or reborn into the new reality would be utterly confounded, would see the absurdities, would sense, would feel the collision of realities. Because of your heightened consciousness, because you have and are continuing to, in your own selves, felt the transformative energies raising your vibrational condition, bringing you to a point where you are going to be able to live in the new world. Because of all of these transformative processes that are going on with you, as I've said many times, you're no longer human beings in the old sense, no longer Homo sapiens. No longer Homo sapiens. You have now reached that point where enough of the transformation has taken place that you may indeed regard yourselves as a new species. And to your number, those who are undergoing a life transformation in the middle of life, I add also those new souls aborning into the new reality, whose vibrations are already changed, who are already a part of that which is coming into being. All of you are going to, because of this tremendous empowering and acceleration of internal energies, are going to be experiencing this change over the next number of years in a variety of ways. I will speak to that now so that you may be prepared for what has already begun and for its approaching intensification. I speak of these matters not at all to alarm you, but to prepare you so that you will not be alarmed. This is a time of enormous change. And you know, when we speak of change, you think of it naturally in old terms. There's always been change. Human life is change. and growth. And so you refer to the past when you think of these changes, and you think of a kind of evolution. I said originally, when I began this work, that what we have here is both an evolution and a revolution. Yes, there is a process of change of which you are a part, but there comes a point where a new evolutionary track is created. The symbol being two earths separating from each other, one growing from the other. One become new in its youth, moving forward, one crumbling and fading and moving into oblivion. These concepts are not purely intended to be illustrative. They are factual on more than, quote, just the spiritual plane. You are moving into a time when you are closer to oneness with God. A time in your personal lives and a time in history, in human history, in the events that have all taken place since this earthly reality exploded into being. You are reaching a point where in your oneness with the God Spirit grows self-awareness, grows an awareness of the connection between you and all others, vibrating to the same tune, a growing ability to interact on a psychic spiritual level with all others, singing the same vibrational tune. You are reaching a point where you must begin the process of recreating yourselves and the reality. Moving closer to God means the reconstruction of Eden. The lost innocence regained, the lost paradise rebuilt. Your work will last many, many lifetimes, even with the extended lifetimes immediately in the future. The difference is going to be that you will be in your upcoming incarnations aware of all other incarnations. The veil will have been lifted. You will intentionally incarnate in certain form for purposes that will not be so vague and theoretical to you as they are now. This is the triumph of the light over the shadow. As the shadow diminishes and finally disappears, you stand in pure consciousness, united absolutely with God and all of the realities. This is the goal that will be reached at the culmination of the age that is now beginning. You have lived in darkness, you now live in light. But this period of time that marks the turning of darkness to light, that marks the separation of the realities, is going to be enormously powerful in its impact on you. Now, there are going to be two impacts. The one upon those who remain, those who are anchored in the old way, those whose turn has not yet come, those who are unprepared. For them, they will see the fearsome reality of economies crashing, wars breaking out, assassinations, dis-ease, growing and growing and growing upon itself. You're seeing the beginnings. Now it is yet within the realm of the acceptable. Everybody says, well, my goodness, everything seems to be going wrong all at once. All of the nations are broke. Every nation seems to be fighting within itself and against others. The earth itself has become unreliable as a vehicle to carry us safely through space. Great disasters are piling one upon the other. Nothing that humans haven't experienced before, but seldom with this level of intensity, seldom with this worldwide knowledge, awareness. For communication is greatly a part of this. You are not only aware now of what takes place in your village or in your town or your city or your state or your nation. You are instantly aware of what takes place all over the earth. And so that you can see a pattern developing and accelerating. Time itself is accordioning. It is telescoping upon itself. All the clocks are just going faster. And you're going faster. So you don't notice on a human level, on a Homo sapien level, you don't notice what's going on that you can't explain. And so for those who are caught up in the fear belief, the events that are taking place now, and that are going to magnify and intensify in the years to come, will be every fear come true. They are going to see it as the end of the world. Those who have one set of beliefs are going to be rioting in the streets in anticipation of the coming of Christ in the golden chariot from the sky. Humans are going to reach back to their roots of religion and race, of nationality. There has been a gradual building toward a gradual kind of loose agreement and understanding, of movement toward tolerance of the realities of others. All that's going to go smash. In the exigencies of what seems to be the final crisis, like will cleave unto like. Old enmities, animosities will arise again. Feuds, vendettas, holy wars. Holy wars, what an interesting phrase. All of these will become the reality. This is not a long time away. This is beginning now, and because it will continually accelerate, the point of worldwide madness is only a few years away. So all of those anchored in fear are going to be experiencing every fear come true. But they're going to see it as an extension of the past. They're going to feel or read about or hear about or see the earthquakes and the typhoons and the volcanoes and the natural disasters, and they're going to hear about and they're going to experience and they're going to see the wars and the disease arising, and they're going to experience the crumbling of the economic structure. Again, accelerating. Governments saying, well, rescue is just around the corner, until you've turned that corner so many times that there will be no belief left in human governance. But all will be seen as an extension of the past, not what it really is, a brand new future, a brand new reality being created. That brings me to you. How will you experience this? Well, certainly you're going to be discommoded by it. It's not going to be comfortable, but it is going to be triumphant. And I want to draw a distinction. Most people are, their highest goal is a little peace and quiet. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's been precious little of it in human history. You'll get your peace and quiet. But you'll get your peace and quiet in the midst of Sturm und Drang. Your peace and quiet will emanate from where the only peace and quiet emanates from, within. And in your increasing contact with each other. Now, this is very important. It's not just people psychically communicating with each other or learning to open the heart and to love each other. There is a oneness growing out of this that is foreign to your past experience here on earth. A oneness that is the best parts of a family experience. Knowing that you are not alone. Knowing that you will always be supported. Knowing that you have friends and more than friends in increasing numbers around you. The experience for you, however, in addition to seeing what's going on and feeling what's going on with the earth, and finding your peace in a process that is taking place within you, because you're more attuned to what's coming than what is, even now. Even now. Now you feel more displaced than you will just a few years down the road, next year, the year after. Now you feel more displaced than you will then, because you're more attuned to what is being born than to what is dying. So in one sense, you are going to be becoming more comfortable and more peaceful with the new energy as it supplants the old. Now, let me use an example. Everybody's worried about the ozone layer disappearing. It is not the disaster that people would like you to believe. Now, while it's very true that for human beings, the disappearance of the ozone layer means big trouble. But for you and for your descendants, it means nothing at all, because you are adapting on a physiological, emotional, spiritual, mental level. The energies of Earth are changing. You are not going to need that alleged protection from the energy of the sun. In fact, you are going to need the energy of the sun undiluted. You're still in that process of change yourself, but changing rapidly. Someone said, well, it seems to be a time of slow motion where nothing is happening. And that's an understandable view. Because what is happening is so powerful, but on so new a level that you haven't yet identified it. If in your lives things seem at a standstill, well, nothing much going on, more of the same, very slow progress, if any, and it seems you may feel stalled, you may feel like there's quicksand under your feet, and a great desire to move on and nothing opening to move on to. And that you would be impatient with this is also understandable. But let me say to you that never in your life and never in all your lives has as much been going on within you. As many changes, as many adjustments, as many adaptations as you are experiencing now. Visualize the earth and visualize an enormous change in the energies focused upon the planet. Those energy shifts, for you who have grown so much more sensitive, so much more aware, those energy shifts will give you a sense of discomfort, a sense of confusion, an occasional dizzy spell. You're going to feel these changes you're going to feel the effects without recognizing the causes. And so you're sometimes going to wonder, what on earth is going on in me? What is going on in the world that I feel so discombobulated? That so often the world awake seems like the dream world. That I see inexplicable things in the newspaper or on television. Things that seem to me clearly nonsensical. And yet that others accept as being simply the way things are. That I look at weather patterns and I think, why on earth don't the meteorologists recognize that something extraordinary is going on here? Instead, they and all of the other people say, well, having a spell of bad weather and yes, I suppose it is all over. Well, who knows, and not even remark on it, not even wonder about it. These shifts, these changes that you are sensitive to, you may not be intellectually aware of what's going on, but your body and your emotions are very much responding to them. It's a time where through inattention you can walk into a wall. A time when you do not feel in command. And yet you are in greater command than you have ever been by reposing your trust in God's process of leading you from here to there. That is the command that you can only reach by relinquishing control. Through this dark and crazy maze that separates yesterday from tomorrow, you are being very carefully guided. It is a time for you to display radical trust in the process that you are in, not trying to push it, not trying to hurry, not impatient for results, recognizing and accepting that everything is as it should be for you. Again, you refer to the past and you think, well, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, to build my business, to build my relationship, to change this, to change that. That's what human beings have done all through the past. Experiment. Well, let's try this. Well, that didn't work. Let's try, well, that didn't work. But you keep trying, and some things work well enough to get you from here to there, and then you think of ways you're going to prove it, and you say, well, we'll try this, and that doesn't work. And this works a little bit. And so it's trial and error. It's always been trial and error. Why? Because you've been living in the dark. Trying to find yourself from room to room without light, without awareness. The nimble monkey brain coming up with invention after invention to try to bring order out of chaos, to try to create a vehicle that will safely get you from the past to the future, paying always very little attention to the present. Past and future are now, to all intents and effects, gone. They only existed for you in such large dimensions because of the factor of the darkness, of the fear. The future had to be ever present in your mind because you were so afraid of what might happen or of what might not happen. The past, large in your consciousness because of all of the things that happened back then that influenced you now. Always fear. Always an unhappy childhood or mistakes that were made. When you don't need fear anymore, you don't need the past or the future. You're capable of living in the present. Very few people live in the present. There's lots of room there. As you perfect living in the present, you find in very real terms, very pragmatically, that there is only this moving moment. I speak of this again and again and again and again so that the concept will finally become clear to you on all levels. There is only this moving moment. You have to use points of reference to prove to you that what you call time is passing. Well, what time is it now? Oh, what time is it? Well, my program is on at that time. I have to watch that. What time is school? Am I late for work? All of these things to remind you the time is passing. Time isn't passing. Time is a convention to account to you for the fact that there seems to be a past and that you have believed in the future. The past is simply artifact, the living memory, the dead memory, I should say, of what has already been created. Only in this moving moment do you exist. This, your atoms, your being, everything that you are exists only now, and now, and now, and now, and now, and now, and now. To try to retain any grip on anything else is foolishness. What is the advantage in living this way? I've said, if you're living in the present, all things are possible to you. You have control, you have focus, you have understanding. If you're living in the present, all of you, those living in the present, can combine with each other on a spiritual, emotional, psychic level. These human bodies that you wear are only barriers to communication and connection. It is part of the process. It is part of the rules of the game for the human life. In fact, in the wider reality, you're all connected. Not only just one awareness, but a beautiful symphony of united beings. The illusion of matter has convinced you that you are separate one from the other. Matter is energy, and so is energy. Energy is everywhere. Energy is you. And so on that energetic level, there has been no separation, can be no separation. Only perceptionally can there be separation. You will still wear the envelope of flesh while you are living in the physical universe. But you will move so far beyond it that you may sit in one place and travel the world and travel the universe. Your spirit is freed through its unification. When the spirit was isolated and seemed separate from body, from mind, emotions, it had nowhere to go. As you have allowed spirit to inhabit your entire being, you free spirit. You feed the body, you take good care of the body, you love the body, you have fun with the body, you manipulate things with the body, but the body is just a tool. A very sophisticated tool, a very nice tool, but a tool. It isn't you. It never was. But you identified with it. You will be losing that sense of identification with body self as being separate and distinct from others. The unification of all consciousnesses frees all consciousnesses. I want to go on a trip to Mars with you. Let's sit here and do it. Not in our imagination, but in our reality. Spirit is energy. Energy is everywhere. There are no holes in that curtain. Therefore, if we have freed our spirit, freed our energy, we can leave the body behind, sitting comfortably empty. while we visit wherever we like to visit. This is not your next life. This is what you are developing now in this life. It may not be perfected in this life, but in its beginnings lie its totality. It isn't just a little atom and another atom and another atom and another atom. It's all the atoms. It's all the being. And so the child that is born is complete as it's going to get. The body will get larger. Experience will bring greater knowledge. But that child, that baby, is complete. You are complete as a being of the new age. So experience will be added. You will become better at manipulating the powers that you have, as the baby does, can become the child, become the adult. But you are complete now as you are. And I say to you, again, practice these things. Practice your psychic, spiritual connections with each other. Those of you who are friends or are acquainted outside of this room, or with others who are not here, but are yet a part of this journey. Practice with each other in developing your strengths, in utilizing your talents. Now, the process is the process. It's going to take place whether you do anything about it or not. But it's going to be easier for you, and it's going to be so much more exciting for you if you participate actively. If you take this gift that you have accepted and play with it, not just put it off on a shelf. You still own the gift, but you don't get any good out of it. So use the gift. Use the faith and say, I didn't know I could do any of these things, and I'm not too sure I can, but I'm going to do it anyway. What does that do? Bing! And all of the guides say, here's one who's ready to try it out. Let's help. Let's help open these doors. Let's help trigger these new synapses. In the midst of the disintegration, there is a greater and greater host of angels, of guides, of friends, from this world and others, from this reality and others, that are here to help you. Call upon them. You don't know them by name or by sight, but they're there. Welcome them in. Have no fear. In the old days, you would say, I'd better cover myself with white light. Who knows what's going to get in? Whether you call them demons or negative spirits or what have you, who knows what's going to get in? You better be careful about opening yourself up. I say to you now, that's over. That's past. You've killed fear. Only fear can invite them in. When you have killed fear in your life, you can open yourself up thoroughly and know that you will be entered into only by the agents of God, love. Be unafraid. Be bold. Open yourself to your own strength. Don't live under old definitions of who you are and what you can do. You've been given a name for a few years in one incarnation on earth, and you think that's who you are. It isn't who you are. See beyond the immediate. You are eternal beings of increasingly great wisdom and growth, who are slowly awakening to their own identities, redefining, breaking out of old limitations. You don't have to punch your way out of it. The old limitations are vanishing at the same rate that your strength is growing. There is no pushing and no shoving needed. But what is needed is your enthusiasm, your interest, your curiosity, your passion to be as big as you can be, to be as fully yourself, beyond the little definitions of this incarnation, beyond the limiting, fear-ridden definitions of the past, to come into your status as gods in training, gods becoming one with God. The self-consciousness, the self-awareness will grow more rapidly within you as you accept, welcome, and encourage your growing power. How can you do that in your lives? And you're living here on earth and you have to continue. You've still got to pay the rent. You've still got to feed the belly. One is playing little games with each other, sending each other colors and numbers, playing psychic games as exercise for the third eye, strengthening it, as any exercise will strengthen your talent, will strengthen your muscles. How can you do it? By remembering every day who you are, by taking a few minutes. It's preferably in the morning, so it's fresh in your mind, but if you're groggy in the morning and you haven't chosen to release yourself from that, or it hasn't occurred to you, then do it in the evening before you go to sleep. And I'll do a little aside on that, and the fact is, if you don't like being groggy in the morning, and say, well, I can't even talk to anyone until I have my cup of coffee or my breakfast or whatever, and get away from me and so forth. Well, if you like that, and it works for you, fine, that's fine. But you don't have to keep that if you don't want it. You can change your attitude as you can change your health, as you can change your identity. You can spend a couple of minutes before you go to sleep and tell yourself, all right, self, let's wake up in the morning full of life, full of eagerness to start the day, welcoming the day. And you'll wake up that way. You can wake up and feel groggy and say, oh dear, I feel terrible this morning. I don't want to feel this way. And you can banish it. You can take a deep breath and feel yourself into life. It's a sense memory. How do I feel when I feel great? I feel like this. And there it is. Play with your power. When you're going somewhere and you think there's not going to be much parking, arrange a parking space in advance. And then trust the car. You're really trusting your higher consciousness. You're trusting the intersection of the webwork that exists between all human beings. And so without being aware of it, you're going to connect with somebody who's going to leave a parking space for you. You're going to look around and you're going to see someone coming. And they're going to say, well, I've got to get going here. I've got to get out of here. I'm going to start the car. And they go to the car and you see them pulling out and you pull in. Play with it. Won't work every time, not at first. But believe it, exercise it, and it will come true. These don't have to be earth-shaking things that you do. All you need to do is play with your reality. What does the child do? Do we put the child to work right away? You say, well, you're being a drag on the family. Why don't you get a job? No, we say your job, little child, is to explore your environment and to play. Then that's your job. Explore your changing inner environment and play with it. And so things aren't going slowly. Things are going very, very rapidly. You are growing very, very rapidly. Do not judge your growth and your changes and your situation in the world by old standards, or you'll be disappointed more often than not. This is a world not governed by ambition, not governed by the necessity to excel. What does excel mean? I'm better than you, and I can prove it. I can run a little faster, I can earn more money, I can spend more money. That's not a part of it. It's why I've also said, don't try to do work that you don't like because the money's good or you feel secure. You're not going to be able to do it. You'll give it the old college try and you'll just make yourself sick. You have to do what is in your heart to be done. The times are a-changing. Everything is a-changing. Old definitions are for the history books to be looked at as objects of curiosity and nothing else. You are redefining reality, not on your own, but participating in a God consciousness that is filling the air around you. Through your own love, through your own willingness to surrender fear, through your own willingness to be brave, for your own willingness to love yourself and accept the gifts of love, you have received all of this within. It is the greatest gift that you could possibly receive. And it's good for everything. Not just for a season. Not just to play with and put away. Not just to wear and outgrow. 1,000 uses for eternity. As you return to the oneness of God, immensely magnified by your experiences of your adventure of scaring yourself with darkness and fear. You have refined yourself as the steel is created through great heat. You have put yourself willingly into the furnace, and you have emerged in new form. These bumps that you're experiencing now will smooth out. Not because there won't be any bumps, but you will have learned to ride the bumps smoothly. Your reality will be a reality of joy, not based on your previous notions of what would bring you joy, but upon the notions that are now appearing and being nurtured within each of your hearts. To be one with love, to be fully filled with that, the energy of God, that energy of love, redefines your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. You've only just come out of the shadow. Millions of others will stay in the shadow and be destroyed with it. 10 years from now, you won't recognize this world. 20 years from now, it'll be brand new. I say these things to you now so that you are reminded that this is a whole new game. Don't try to judge it in old ways. Don't try to judge it at all. Live it moment by moment, bringing as much joy as there is out of each moment. Playing with your reality, playing with your work, playing with your talents, playing with your friends. It is your job now to play. No other job has so much importance, is that you play with this newfound joy until you learn who you are now. Now we open this for general questioning.
Plautus, you mentioned before that we're not the first ones to graduate. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yes. I'll try to. I shouldn't say yes, because it's a multidimensional concept. And it's difficult to talk about in English. Or Icelandic. Life is not a choo-choo train. It isn't from way back there to way out there. Everything happens at once. It is only through the conventions of this particular game that is being played that the designer of the game has said, for the purposes of this game and the point of this game, so that it may be fully enjoyed and fully experienced in the particular ways necessary for the outcome of the game, we are going to wall in this reality through the convention of time. But throughout that wall that surrounds this game of physical reality, all of the laws that govern what can and cannot take place in a physical reality, you are surrounded outside of that wall by a reality that doesn't have anything to do with those rules. When you sit down to play a game of Monopoly, you play by the rules of Monopoly, and the most ardent socialist among you will find him or herself becoming a rabid capitalist because of the rules of the game, of that particular chunk of reality. It may bring out factors about yourself you'd rather not look at or acknowledge. But you're simply playing the game as it was intended to be played. That's the rules. So is it with this larger game of life in the physical reality. You play by the rules, and the rules said then was back there, and what's to come is up there, and you talk about history and so forth. Your rules, your game, your reality as a human being, in that reality, this is all true. It's all true. But it's not true in context with the much wider reality. Now, I've said to you that no one is lost. And yet I've also said to you that there are millions of people are going to go down the tubes with the old reality, but not irretrievably. Because there is this is giving me a headache, trying to translate these concepts into human terms. There is how the reality looks to you and how it's experienced to you does not describe how it in fact is. Instead of being flat like a map of the earth that's been laid out in a flat form, it is, in other words, two-dimensional. When you know, in fact, the world is three-dimensional and round, so is the difference between that three-dimensional reality that you live in and the multidimensionality of the wider reality. And so you die in this reality, and yet you come to life in the wider reality, and in the terms of the wider reality, you've never died at all. The game says you're dead, and you fall over. That's the rules of the game. Certain things take place, and you've had too much fat and too much cholesterol, and you catch a bug, and boom, you're out of the game. But you're not out of the wider reality. You in the wider reality, you're looking at the game board, and you say, "Darn, I lost that piece," and so you take it off the board. But it hasn't made any difference to you, really, only for the purposes of the game. And so, in that context, all of those who in this life, this reality, this game, let's say they're Saddam Hussein, and not very enlightened person, who believes absolutely in the rules of this game, which is to get as much as you can, and cause as much havoc as you can to build up your sense of power. And so, playing this game quite well, and. But from the outside, there is the source of Saddam Hussein, who's saying, "Oh my goodness, what a terrible villain I've created here! Isn't this fun?" And And when the time comes and Saddam Hussein is removed from the game, as inevitably all the players are, then they say, well, I'm kind of glad to pull him out of the game. I didn't like that fellow very much. It didn't have anything to do with that source of Saddam Hussein. He was just playing the game. But what Saddam Hussein learned, even in a negative sense, all learning isn't positive, but what he learned about himself and the efficacy of his methods and the lacks that he discovered in himself, well, pull the player out of the game, but all of those experiences become a part of that being in the wider reality who was the source of that player, that piece, and thereby adds to the understanding and to the growth of the entity of the wider reality. Well, each of you is such an entity. Each of you has had his turn with putting in a Saddam Hussein into the game, and every other permutation of human being. So what you need to understand regarding do we make sure we all get a chance to go through this process, that it's happened already and will happen again. By my saying it's happened already and it will happen again, I am lying to you. I come a little bit closer by saying it is happening, not happening now. But what sense is that going to make to you? Unless you remember that you, the real you, the big you, is outside of that rule game. You understand perfectly. So there are some things that the player in the game, the piece on the board, must simply accept because they're outside of the rules of the game.
You mentioned future incarnations to help build the new Eden. When I was in college, we studied Buddhism, and we were told that Buddhists try to live their lives so that they won't have to be born again, or reborn, or reincarnated. Mm-hmm. So I naturally sort of developed a notion that being reincarnated was not such a great deal. But you're saying that it's part of our function in a way.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on
that? Yes. The Buddhists are wrong. All human religions are wrong, but they're all right too. But it's a mixture of right and wrong. It's seeing through the glass darkly, being on one side of the glass. And the emotions, the feelings, the attitudes going into that feeling are not wrong. Who in his right mind would want to be reincarnated as a human being, practically any human being, over the last several thousand years? Nasty, brutish, and short are the terms that come to mind for the lives that humans generally lead. And so naturally, you're going to want to get off the wheel of karma. The Christian is going to want to go to heaven and be done with all this. And the Buddhist is going to want to end incarnation to be done with all this. Everybody wants to be done with all this, and why not? But when you recognize that all this, in a negative, pejorative sense, is over, it's past. The incarnations of the future are not going to, therefore, bear any resemblance, except in the manner of birth, to the incarnations of the past. For you who are in this timeline, this reality vehicle, moving beyond the embrace of the duality of love and fear. And so as you move into a reality that is love alone, light alone, without darkness, then you move on to the next task of humankind. Not the wounding and then the healing of the self, but the uniting of the self with other selves for the purpose of bringing healing first to this planet and to the human beings upon this planet, and then extending, becoming a world of, you may call it priests and healers, who will extend their influence and guidance. You're becoming guides, in a sense, guides in the physical material plane. Your work is going to be for others rather than for yourself, and that's going to be the source of your joy, because you yourselves will have everything that you want or that you desire, and so your work is going to be I could say group-oriented, but that'll only make you think of a bunch of quarreling people. And, well, it's going to be a oneness that you haven't experienced before. You're going to have the delight of the difference of how delightfully different you are from you, and how delightfully different you are from you, but how wonderful it is that we are all one in our delightful differences. And that's a beautiful experience when you're not afraid of anybody. And so it's going to be progressive, as it has been in the past, progressive growth. The ideal being reached probably not in what we'll call your next incarnation, but moving on through the years, developing all of the threads, as with the newborn baby, as with yourself, as the newborn new age baby. So will the reality be complete within itself, in its essence, now, within the next few years, but will complete itself as the child does by learning and growing and experimenting and so forth. So will the overall reality be growing, refining, extending, and finally fully itself. Complete. Yes.
So this new Eden that you talk about, is this going to be the earth, or is this going to be something else?
Yes. I say that because I'm speaking both allegorically and realistically. Yes, it is restoring the earth to its perfection, to its Eden quality. It is restoring oneself to the innocence personified by Adam and Eve in the garden. That which has been destroyed by fear is rebuilt. But because you are yourselves the bringers of light and of love in these new incarnations, you will be extending Eden, helping others on other planets to restore their own Edens. This is a topic for another lecture, but having to do with why are there millions of planets? Why must the same experiment be repeated and repeated and repeated? No, of course not. The Earth is the place for this particular focus that you have been experiencing. But there are many other planets, all with their own specialty and all with their own purpose. The final purpose being so glorious and, from this view, inexpressible. But so you don't look at the final purpose. You look at the experience of expanding the purpose lifetime by lifetime. So the Buddhists don't have much liking for the human lives. It's long been regarded as punishment, or as the result of sinful actions, or as moving through endless tracts of waste into some heaven here, some beyond. And that has been the rule of fear. That's over. So that's not going to. You're not going to think of incarnations that way. Mm-hmm. You're not going to want them to be done with.
Okay. Really answers my question.
Yes.
Plautus, can you tell us a little bit about what the Twin Cities is likely to be like in the next 5 or 10 years? How it's likely?
Well, first, obviously, in overall terms, it's simply part of the whole, and will be moving through the changes as others will. But that said, we also have said many times that the energy of the Earth is different from here to there, and that accounts for what might otherwise be unaccountable, the difference of feeling that you have in one city or one state or one country from that in another. The energy of the Earth in this location has been conducive to the process of transformation. Many have been drawn here for that purpose. Many were born here for that purpose, to utilize that energy that promotes transformation. Speaking in practical terms of the effects of the process on human beings and on the earth over the next few years is probably one of the calmer places to be. Because there has been more time for more people to go through the process that you have gone through. Thus, let's say the whole world is a garden. One part of the garden is growing better than the other, and another part is growing better than the rest, and one is really filled with weeds and not doing so well, and so forth and so on. And we would say that this part of the garden is ahead of most of the other parts of the garden. And so there's going to be an amelioration of some of the negative effects. Fear has not taken such a stranglehold here. It has been modified through the energy of place long before the last dozen years of focused energetic change. Speaking particularly, it's naturally going to be affected by economic shifts and changes, not as profoundly as some other areas. Is there some specific you wish to know? All right. We'll move from the general to the specific. Looking, there seems to be a division in that neighborhood. Now, I'm looking at more than a block or two. I'm looking at what would be large enough to be considered a neighborhood. It seems that on one edge of the neighborhood there will be an encroachment of decay, but that most of the neighborhood thrives. Now, you're in a part of the neighborhood that is not way over on the most thriving part, but pretty much in the middle of the thriving area. So you're not in the decaying, the part that will decay. In a sense, what I'm feeling is that the sense of the neighborhood is shifting and shifting southward. But I don't know how to say that. It may not be redefined by name and say, well, we've moved such and such a place a little bit farther south. But I guess what I'm looking at is that as that movement takes place, what I'm seeing as that movement is the encroaching decay, but the increasing stability moving that way. So I'm seeing the whole thing move a little bit, you see.
What do you see as the coming role of the Soviet Union?
Yes. It's like the little girl with the little curl in the middle of her forehead. When Russia is bad, it's very, very bad. When it's good, it's very, very good, and when it's bad, it's horrid. And what is this area of the Earth, inhabited by Russia and some of what have been known as its satellites, Russia particularly, though, as the focal point, has been an area dominated unrelievedly by fear throughout its human habitation. Now, that makes it very hostile ground for new growth. And yet, the energy of change, the energy of transformation, fills the whole earth. But it's going to grow swiftest and clearest where there's the most receptivity to it. And I think in the immediate future, we're going to see a great deal of destruction, human destruction, earth destruction, illness in that area. It's going to be pretty much confined to that area. In other words, I don't see a Soviet Union becoming a world terrorist threat. I see it rather in a process of disintegration, but with, again, those shoots appearing, the new appearing in the midst of the destruction of the old. But it's probably going to be pretty tough there for the next few years. And I think you're going to see the present shaky balance utterly disintegrate by, let's say, next year at this time. It's going to be pretty grim.
May I ask a specific question also? What is my role in the life of this new friend in the Minsk area? What is our role to play out?
Yes. Understand that humanity is no longer bound by geographical borders. That, as I said before, when the spirit is freed, it is freed to move anywhere. When you have contacts with others who have felt the experience of the light, your connection with them will be primarily, there'll be exceptions, people who actually travel back and forth, but physically, but will be primarily at a psychic spiritual level. I don't want to underplay this, its importance. Well, you might say, well, here's somebody who's hungry, and here's somebody who's in a very difficult situation, and I'm going to connect with them at a psychic spiritual level and breathe sweetness and light at them. And it's not like that. It is all of this revolution, evolution is attitude change, is a recognition on a whole different level that condemns the old perceptions to death. You've raised yourself a foot or two. Your perspective is different. What you are receiving and giving is different. And so the gift that you can give is much more important than a square meal or a suit of clothes. It is a gift that will allow that person to do what you're doing, despite the hostility of the surroundings. Now, it's not that there won't be other and more traditional ways of reaching across the seas, but I don't need to go into those because they'll come clear to you. But what's underlying is what is my business and what is most important.
You see a lot more trouble in China, too?
Yeah, the phrase that leaped to mind was broken China. Yes, the suppression of the light in China is almost entirely on an ideological and governmental level. In other words, it's the rules and the limitations imposed by government, by physical force and by law and so forth that's keeping a lid on things. The light has reached there in its full force also. Now, I'll contrast that with the Soviet Union. I look at China and I see light bubbling under the surface demanding to be released. I look at the Soviet Union, that area, and I see it much darker. I see much more anger, much more despair there. I think you're going to be surprised on a human level by how quickly and thoroughly over the next few years the government of China is going to be utterly changed. Utterly changed.
While we're in China, Plautus, I have a production that's being given in Shanghai this summer with my music, and it just occurred to me that it's the first time my music's ever been heard there, and I wanted you to tell me if this was going to have a positive, if this was going to have any kind of major effect on the...
As an enlightened and enlightening being, all that you create bears with it the signature of your own energy. An energy that is, as I've already said, higher in vibration, that is revolutionary, evolutionary. And so the impact of that which you create is going to bear that energy signature. and will draw, will shed light and draw those looking for light wherever it's performed, wherever it exists. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to, doesn't mean it's going to blow the lid off everything and change the world, but it's going to shed a light.
It'll be successful then, this production.
Yes, yes. It looks like it from here. Frankly, prediction is getting to be very difficult because things are shattering and changing so rapidly. As I've said from the beginning, when I give predictions, not because I know what the future is going to be, because you have free will. I base what I say on sort of psychic extrapolation of present conditions. Well, when present conditions are going through all sorts of scrambling, then only the shorter range predictions are likely to be really on the money, and the longer range, it's up for grabs because there is so much changing at once.
Plautus, I've been just feeling like I need to sleep a lot more lately.
Yes. Is anyone else feeling that too?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that going to change anytime soon?
Yes, it will. Remember, as I've said, this is intense adaptation time. Intense receiving of energy, intense adjustments. It's very tiring, and so you're not getting sick, and there's nothing wrong with you. You need more rest. Now, that's one reason. Second reason is you're getting information, and you're going through a process in your sleep. I shouldn't say just getting information, because that's really maybe the smallest part of it. But you are going through in your sleep time, and you may wake up feeling tired too. You know, one of the reasons you need to sleep longer is that you're working so hard when you're asleep. If you have to get up at a certain time, then go to bed earlier. Give yourself all the sleep that you want. If you want to take a nap, take a nap. There's nothing wrong with it. You need it, and I speak to all of you.
How long is this period going to go?
Also.
I don't know what to say here. I don't want to discourage you. No, it's not that. It's not that bad because, as I've said, there's an acceleration of event, an acceleration of change, an increase of intensity. You are going through a process of adjustment. When that adjustment isn't complete, because the adjustment continues, but when it is over the hump, when you're able more easily to deal with your emerging self and with the destructive energies that are present, you're not going to feel so tired from it. It's going to be easier for you. It's like when you start to exercise after having not done it for a long time. Well, my goodness, you're awfully exhausted at first, but you continue the same level of exercise and even increase it, and you discover you're not getting so tired. Well, really, basically that analogy holds true here. You're going to be getting stronger and therefore not expending so much of your available energy in the process. Further, right now is a very intense time to you because you're just emerging from the birth canal. You are still in a process in which there are shreds of the past clinging to you. You're at a stage of rapid growth, rapid adjustment, and dealing with the trauma of birth, with the enormity of everything being different. So that's going to smooth itself out too as you get used to it. Yes.
Plautus, you had mentioned a little bit ago those that are open and then going through this transformation serve as guides and actually as healers. Maybe I'm asking for a little more in regards to the healing, how we serve as healers, and maybe me in particular, what I can do right now
Yes.
in this regard.
As always, the rule is physician heal thyself first. And that's what you've been involved in healing yourself. Now, healing, you generally, most often regard that as a physical thing, healing the flesh, or secondarily healing the emotions, or healing the mind. Healing covers a wide assortment of processes, depending on who you are and what you do and what you want to do. So for some, it may be literally laying on of hands and invoking the power of God to flow through you and to bring physical adjustment and physical balancing into the being. I'm considering doing a special short course in healing techniques. If there are people interested in that, I'll perhaps about a 3-week, 3-session course, simply in how to channel that energy of healing to greatest effect. So some may choose to do that. Now, you're already involved in what I would describe as a healing process. That in music, music is sort of the foundation for everything in this universe. It is the harmony and the melody, and I'm not going to go into all of the reasons, but speak of the music of the spheres. For those who can hear, there's a great tune being played by the universe. And to bring others into harmony with that tune, to bring them into a place of being able to make a joyful noise, is a very healing process. Other uses for you are going to develop out of that. But I will say, for now, your focus is where it should be. And let the changing moment determine your future applications. Children, music. You're in the beginnings of your work.
You told me once that my doll work comes from a deep place and also I'm, even though I finally got a flyer together and have some plans for the summer, I'm not where I'm going exactly.
Taking the second thing first, go right ahead with your plans. They're right on time. Let the moving moment dictate your process. I don't want to get into a lot of individual prediction, because that subverts my own focus, which is to say, live in the moment and be content with the expansion of that moment as it moves. You don't need to worry about the future. I mean, you have not to worry about the future. It is foolish and an old habit that you need to discard bit by bit. You're not going to all shake it off like it's never been. But you need to remind yourself, why worry about the future? The future isn't here. I can deal with now. You're going to deal with now. Now, in the terms of the significance of the dolls, you are one who has been manipulated and controlled over many lifetimes, emerging only now to take charge of yourself. And the symbology of the dolls is healing for you, but also is a natural, creative extension for the benefit of others of your own learning and understanding of the idea of self. They didn't change your name for no purpose, you know. It's dolls, self. Just let it grow with you.
I'm curious. Lately, I've found that I'm working with a real lot of sexual abuse victims.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious if that is.
Well, it's not so personal. Rather, it is a phenomenon that is coming out of the closet. More people are remembering what occurred to them. This has gone on throughout human history, and much worse than it is now. But now is the time for, in the growth of the sensitivity, in the recognition. This is a whole new consciousness. 50 years ago, this could not have occurred. This recognition of sexual and physical abuse and the ability and the willingness to deal with it could not have existed 20 years ago to the degree that it is now. It is the product of a consciousness change. It is a recognition that the human must be healed, repaired. And for you to heal, to repair that human being, you must be aware of the sources of dis-ease. And so all of the sources of dis-ease are coming clear. And some, finding those sources, will wallow in the pain of the memories. Some will choose to pull their pain around them as a cloak. Others, in recognition, as they recognize what has taken place in their lives, will use that information as a key to unlock the storehouse of memories that, when released, will heal them. And so, as with all things, this will be used in a number of ways, this increasing awareness. Now, it is obviously then important that those who work with others who are becoming aware of the reality of sexual or physical abuse in their past, it's important that those people be themselves sensitive and encouraging healing rather than exhibiting the kind of sympathy that only encourages the person to remain in their bed of pain. And so for someone like you, for example, to have these matters coming up in your life, your dealing with them is going to be done with realism and with humor as well as sympathy. And you're not going to be encouraging people to remain in their bed of pain. Your own enlightenment will allow you to share that enlightenment with others. Not that all will accept it, but that's the purpose of their existence and their increasing awareness in your life. It really doesn't connect in any one-to-one way with your personal past. Yes.
Plautus, I seem to have lost my focus on what I was trying to do.
Good.
Yeah, I know, it's been really dark. Career-wise, I don't know if I'm at a point of change or whether I've gotten lazy, I've lost my nerve, all of the above.
No. No to all of the above. When I spoke of the general confusion and so forth, this is a part of that, and many have been feeling it in the career area. Others, their predominant awareness of it has been in the relationship area. It's a product of your changing awareness of yourself. On a higher conscious level and on a subconscious level, you become aware of these changes before you do on the conscious level. And so you find yourself feeling confused, as you say, losing your focus and wondering all sorts of things about your own competence and ambition and so forth. And I say to you, let go of that. If your focus is blurring now, when you change focus on a camera or a telescope, it blurs before it comes into focus. And so the focus needs to be changed, but during the process of change, the image is blurred and you don't see where it's going. So be at peace with that. There is no rush, and this I have to emphasize all the time, because everybody's in a hurry. Human beings are always in a hurry, and the modern human being even more so. And there isn't any rush. You have as much time as you need to get done what you want to get done. It's very important for you to recognize that just because someone thinks, or that old you used to think, well, I should know what I want at least, if not how to do it. And now you're at a point where you say, I'm not even sure what I want. Well, of course you don't know what you want, because you don't know who you are. And what you want is an extension of who you are, and you are revising your understanding of who you are. And let that be. Now, this isn't going to be indefinite. This isn't going to be spun out forever. Yes, you're going to continue to be making minute adjustments in your vision of yourself as you see more and more clearly. But this is the time of the most confusion, because it's the beginning of the time of looking at yourself from a different perspective with a different consciousness. And for now, I say, let go of all definitions, let go of all past ambitions. If a door opens to you, fine, go into it. And if it slams in your face, say, oh, fine, that's fine too. Don't think, oh, but all my life I've wanted to do this or be this, or I've aimed on this particular career path for the last several years, and all of a sudden it seems to have disappeared under my feet. Well, if you must take a little time for mourning it, go ahead, but don't try to extend it, don't try to repair it, don't try to force it. You are going to more truly emerge from this process as yourself than you have ever been. So let yourself, and when you take the pressure off, it's not so bad. It's only when you can't focus and say, but I have to focus, that you get frustrated and see it and feel it as a negative experience. When the focus blurs, you say, well, I can't see where I'm going in the sense that I wanted to. So A, I'm going to trust where I'm going, and B, I'm going to have a good time doing something else until the new focus emerges.
I've been without a formal job for a while now, and actually I'm getting back to a place where it feels comfortable. But I also am starting to realize that I get up in the morning and I'm not sure what I'm going to do, and I'm wondering if you can give me some advice.
All right. First, the underlying reality is have trust, live in the moment. The secondary reality, from a purely pragmatic basis, just to get yourself up and going, before you go to sleep, decide what you're going to do. Not throughout the whole day, but what you're going to do when you get up or when you get organized in the morning. Get yourself started, and then you can flow with the shifting flow. But I understand that waking up and saying, now what, can be discouraging. So decide now what beforehand, and you'll be moving along fine. Also, I want to say that one day, a Tuesday, next week, you're going to feel enormously strong, sure in your faith, one with the universe, happy, delighted, and joyful to have the future revealed to you moment by moment. And Thursday of next week, you're going to say, oh my God, what is going on? This is too much for me. I can't stand it. I feel dizzy. Well, gradually there are going to be more Tuesdays than Thursdays.